Hello and welcome back to Unreal Engine 5, Blueprint Mastery, Door Systems and Interactive Portals. Last time we finished with our buttons door that opens by sliding. Now what we did was we created 3 buttons and we created a manager that we stored the information of the buttons. The manager also holds a correct password, so when the buttons are in a correct order or correct state, the door can unlock. Basically, the door unlocks. When they are false, they go back to locking the door. Now, let's continue with our inventory. As we said before, an inventory is just a list. So, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to our third person character, inside third person folder, blueprints, third person character, and we're gonna create a new variable. And we're gonna call it inventory. This variable will be of the type string, and it will be an array. There is plenty of rules about what type of container would the inventory be, but for us a string will do, as we will give just an ID to our items. So let's continue by creating our item. We're gonna go to blueprints, we're gonna right click, we're gonna create a new blueprint class, type actor, class actor, and we're gonna call it BP item. I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna close all these things we don't need. The character also, we just created the inventory. We won't need to do anything else. That would be our inventory, this list. Having a user interface to represent this list would be like the visual part of the inventory. But besides that, it's basically a list, and that list would be able to call stats about the items. But we won't go into data tables and everything right now, so let's just go back to our item and let's add its components. So first of all, we're gonna need a static mesh to represent the item. We're not gonna set it right now. The next thing we're gonna need is a sphere collision. Now, why a sphere and not a cube, a box? Because it is a little bit easier for items to be spherical collision. For example, with walls, also the player doesn't detect the pattern. There is a lot of hypotheses about why it should be a sphere or not, or a box. I personally prefer a sphere for items. The third thing we will need would be a rotating movement component. And when I click on this, we will see that it becomes a little bit left to the hierarchy. Like if I close this, it doesn't belong to the default scene root. Well, this is because this is an independent component. It's a behavior that can be attached to a blueprint. And we can create our own blueprint components. Let me show you really fast. Go to blueprint class and we can make a blueprint, an actor component. Let's call this my actor component. I pressed space instead of, anyway, this, and let's add it, my actor. As you can see, these components are separate entities and they do not belong to default scene root. I'm gonna delete this because we don't need it. And here we could have some behavior scripted for all the actors. For example, the widget behavior could have been, so we wouldn't have to repeat the colliding and everything with the actor. Talking about this, repeating this code, let's open multi-switch door, doesn't matter really. One door that has this behavior of the widget. So we're gonna copy this, we're gonna go to item and we're gonna paste it over here. And we're gonna create a matching function for the widget update, which let's just fill it in right now. I'm gonna go to the other function over here. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it here. I'm gonna promote this to a variable because this is the third person game mode. I'm gonna say here pick up and compile, and the box needs to change to the sphere. Now we have an issue. This is a sphere and this is a box collider. We could just change this, but what we're going to do is just enter this function, change this to instead of box collider to actor component, an object reference. I'm gonna disconnect this. I'm gonna cast to component box. I think this is box component. Let's convert it to a pure cast. Let's put a branch. Actually, no. Let's just keep it as is. Let's connect it here. And then I'm gonna cast to sphere. Sphere is not spelled like this. Cast to sphere component. I'm gonna bring it under it. So if it is this, we're gonna do this. And can I do this also? Okay. So we do need to convert it to a pure cast. I'm gonna disconnect these things. I'm gonna convert this to pure cast. I'm gonna connect this also to a pure cast. And I'm gonna do a select. I'm gonna connect this here. So if it's true, if it's false, we do this. No branch. And we're gonna connect it here. So over back to our item, we can connect the sphere. So what did I just do right now? What I did was go to our outdoors event. I changed, let's delete the box also, we just collider, the type from box component, from box collision to general actor component. Then I went ahead and asked, is this component a box? If it's a box, then all good, get overlapping actors. If it's a sphere, then all good, get overlapping actors. I think this is a little bit of overkill, but let's check if it works. So I'm gonna go back a door. Where is the player start? Let's press play. It doesn't seem to be working. All right. So I did a little bit of testing. It was working. If I play now, it just needs to recompile these blueprints. Like I opened the lever door and this wasn't compiled. It had a warning. Because things changed, but they didn't change much, but they did also change. So if we go to each blueprint and compile, actually we can just save all, I think. If we save all, does it compile all? We have a crash. Yeah, you see, because this wasn't compiled. Unreal really doesn't like doing this in blueprints, neither in C++ or any programming language. You have to really compile things. But blueprint compiling is much faster. You just press the compile button and it happens instantly. but see, this is why also they say there shouldn't be many changes to the code. Like when you have a core code, you shouldn't change it much. I think that's it. I think I compiled everything. Great. Now, I'm gonna close all the tabs to the right. I'm just gonna keep the item. And let's fix the other errors. Now, the other error is that we are searching for a box overlap where we have the sphere overlap. So I'm gonna click on the sphere, go to the overlap events, begin overlap, and end overlap. They are basically the same events, just for the sphere instead of the box. So I'm gonna control and connect these cables here. Make sure you connect it to the correct ones, other component and not anything else. So I'm gonna bring this here, bring this over here, and maybe I should have written the code from the beginning, but we would still have to change this. So changing this to a general actor component and casting to the sphere component and box component seems to have worked. And now we can have any collider basically between these two, or we can increase this or make a different system here basically, or a previous step. So now that we have the update widget, we actually need one last part. We need to get the game mode. Not that, get game mode and cast to to third person game mode, convert to pure cast, and I'm gonna bring a setter and set this. Now let's go set our static meshes. So to do this, we're gonna go to construction script and let's create a mini item ID system. Let's call it item ID system. So we will have a new variable. We will have it to be string, and let's call it item ID. Now we will make it instance editable and expose on spawn. Now we will get our static mesh. We're gonna set static mesh, because this is not this set static mesh, set static, the function set static mesh. This is set the component. We want to set the function. So why the function? Because this is a component static mesh, and we want to set the mesh of this component. We're gonna do a select, and let's bring, we cannot do a select and string. So what we will do is switch on string. I'm gonna delete this select. I'm just gonna duplicate this and connect this over here. Let's have two cases, and let's connect case 0 here and case 1 here. Now for the static meshes, let's go to our map. Let's select our empty not colored triangle. I'm gonna close the game mode also, we don't need it. I need to find it and add it over here. The same one for the next triangle. We're gonna find it and add it over here. Now let's make the cases. So I'm gonna have this say ID1. I got here by selecting the switch on string, and the second one will say ID2. And I'm gonna remove the has default pin. This got disconnected because I changed the name. So our correct item is ID2. Let's set a default ID, ID1. And if I compile now and go to viewport, we can see that we have this triangle over here and that our collision is very small. So let's increase the collision sphere. Let's set a radius of 150. Maybe that's a lot. Let's set it 120. 100. Yep. 100 seems to be okay. Let's compile and save. And let's bring our item to our world. We have one item here and one item here. Now, I want to change this item to be the correct one. I'm gonna go to ID over here and select ID2. And ta-da, it became the other item. I think this is enough for this one. I'm gonna see you on the next. Goodbye.